this will likely be my final video on this unless people want me to do another video, which I'll talk about at the end. Now, there is one assertion that I've continually made since the beginning about this fight, about Bud. I kept saying he could have done better, he could have done better, and I'm going to defend that assertion with evidence today. But I think he could have done better just with one small change and one small tool that would have had a big impact. And we're going to demonstrate that. Now, like, subscribe. Now let's talk science. I'm going to start off different, and I'm going to bring back a piece of my old style of analysis. I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of a thing, but I'm not going to give any context at first. I'm just going to show you the same pattern, and then you can develop your own opinion, and then I'll tell you what I think is happening and why it's important. Here we go. Now, before I talk about that, just a little bit, originally this video was going to be a combination of two parts talking about what you just saw, plus looking at the 12th round and showing how dominant it was, because there's a myth, there's a few myths about the 12th round, and people were saying that it was close, Crawford got rocked and all. It's like the 12th round was the statistically most dominant round in the fight. It was a round that Crawford dominated, and I was like, oh, do I want to do a breakdown? It all depends on what you want, but I can either do Virgil Ortiz and Sergey, I can't pronounce the last name. I can do that, or I can do the 12th round. So that's why I say it's up to y'all. I could do that. Okay. But I just talk about that 12th round because I think it's the most important round of the fight, because it kind of told you a lot about who was the better fighter. And I kept saying that I wanted to look at the 12th round, so that's why I just bring that up. But it's a pick, but from what y'all want me to cover next, because I've been talking Crawford Madrimov for a while now. As I've said, and I repeated several times in the previous breakdown, no strategy is perfect. This strategy that I just showed right there, or the tool I just showed, has drawbacks, and in many instances the drawback to a constant jab or a probe, particularly the jab, which is what I was highlighting, is the potential for counters, especially the more you do it. The more he gets used to it, the more he adapts. And in fact, in between those examples, before and after those examples that I just pointed out, there are instances where Madrimov jumps in with a left hook to try and get over the jab. He tries to throw the cross to counter the jab. Of course, the cross to counter the jab is his most favorite shot to deal with that. Parrying, blocking, defending, right? And it's not, by the way, it's not about the jab landing, because feints and probes help set up the jab. We're going to talk more about that. Again, that strategy is not perfect, but it's far better than the alternative, where Crawford sits back in a high guard, letting Madrimov build rhythm, which is a necessary component for success in his style. He lets Madrimov build rhythm, and when he builds that rhythm, he comes in and he's able to get creative, and you see the best out of Madrimov. In every one of those examples, you saw that it interrupted his rhythm. And that's the key. And not every time you get a complete reset, although there were a couple of those where he just completely has to reset. But you see at least somewhat of a break of his rhythm in his rhythm. But when you don't get that, Madrimov is able to bring out some creative shot. Madrimov gets in his bag, basically. It's important to point out that it's better to be threatened by expected counters to your jab than it is to be surprised by exotic combos. And I'll show just at least one example of that. Crawford sitting in a high guard. You see Madrimov feinting, establishing his rhythm, doing his thing, and he's just sitting there, not giving him anything to worry about, not occupying the space, not breaking his rhythm. And Madrimov sets up the cross to throw the left hook around the guard and blast him with a heavy shot. And that's just a good example of what I'm talking about not doing, or what happens when you don't jab and probe enough. Luckily, Crawford was working behind the jab a lot, which is why in the rounds where he jabbed more often, he had more control. However, there's adaptability to the jab, of course. Madrimov is a smart fighter. However, regardless of that, Madrimov obviously had trouble adapting to the jab the whole fight, because Crawford's jab was successful the whole fight. People think that a jab, in order for it to be successful, it has to land. That's one part of success, right? Scoring. but the other part of success is controlling the fight. Now, I personally don't really like score controlling the fight, but that's a whole nother can of beans. But controlling the fight does lead to scoring, and that's my point. So Crawford's successful jab across the length of the fight from beginning to end, which is why I covered the 8th round, right? The 8th round was Madrimov's statistically most successful round. But yeah, I wanted to highlight examples in the beginning, but also across the length of the fight. If you even when you look at this 8th round, also in his most statistically successful round, he was shut down in the first 30 seconds just by the jab. What does that tell you? This is the 8th round, right? There's a lot of time to adapt, and even in the 8th round, he was able to be shut down for an extended period of time. That's not to call Madrimov trash, because if you watched anything, any part of my coverage in these videos, I give Madrimov far more praise for his performance than I do for Crawford's. Although I do give Crawford praise, obviously, because Crawford's fighting a prime, big, athletic fighter. I just think Madrimov's approach was better relative to his capabilities. And it doesn't mean I think he won. I just thought he came with a better game plan. Oftentimes, fighters come with great game plans and lose. Yeah. Also, there are a few examples where Madrimov doesn't reset or jump back or overreact when the jab is in his face. Like I said, it's not a perfect strategy. You're not going to get him to reset or break his rhythm every time you throw a jab, but you can do it enough to get what Crawford wanted out of Madrimov, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Even when that lead hand is working as a probe or as a feint, we see that they serve to have the same effect. And in fact, the more he probed and feinted mixed in with his jab, the more the jab is successful and effective. Now, since I hold Crawford to a high standard, like how I do with Inoue, how I do with Usyk, I come with critiques and I say what I think they could have done better, because I think that they are amazing fighters. And this is just one tool that I think would have gotten Crawford more of what he wanted. If he would have frustrated Madrimov at the edge of range, it would have forced Madrimov to make some hasty decisions, and those hasty decisions are the one thing Crawford was looking for, and the thing that he didn't get, and the reason why he was so reserved. There you go. Also, take note of when Madrimov was at his most active in moments like this, right? It's when Crawford's jab wasn't constantly there to limit his availability for options of closing the distance, right? And by the way, when I talk about the stats, I'm talking about Jabber AI stats, which is the AI that scored Usyk versus Fury, and it's an AI that I talked about a long time ago. Jabber AI is way better than CompuBox, and we've done like an hour-long breakdown of us doing frame by frame alongside the AI. So yeah, AI had a 7-4-1 Crawford with 1 round equal in punches landed. However, for the sake of argument, you can just say 7-5. 7 Crawford, 5 Madrimov. Oh, I think I'll put it into that right there. Get ready for Virgil Ortiz, probably either tonight or tomorrow. I will see y'all later, unless y'all choose the 12th round, of course. All right, I'm going.